So I'm just going to give another short presentation about a project that we are launching here today at CSAW. So this is something that I hope that we'll be able to come back to you with some results over the next few years. But it's a community engagement project, so I'm hoping that you will all get excited about it and join us. So this is the 50th year that there's been a public avalanche safety program in Colorado. Thank you very much for that. My contribution is just a small piece, but we're going to talk a little bit about that later today. But you can see over the years that how we've been approaching this problem of trying to help people with avalanche safety in Colorado has changed quite a bit, both in terms of what our offices looked like and also the information that we've been giving out to people, starting from kind of long text products using telex, really long phone messages that you could listen to, and then eventually getting to a website. But as we look at the operation today, how we collect data and the level of effort that we're putting into collecting data, not just us, but all of you as well, has really increased dramatically. And not only that, but what we're doing with this information has changed dramatically as well. Complicated databases that we can query, numerical modeling, and even some avalanche detection at this point. This has been great progress over this time. And along with that, how we're communicating with people has changed quite a bit. Today, we're using avalanche danger scales and avalanche problems. We have graphics, we have images, videos, we're using social media, mobile phone apps. So we've learned a lot about how to communicate with people, and we've tried very hard to try to communicate with people in effective manners. So this evolution has been dramatic over this last 50 years. We're now using multiple communication methods. We're trying to capitalize on multiple communication or multiple learning pathways. And we're trying to deliver this information to people so they can get it at the right time where they can use it in the most effective way. All of this work in the avalanche industry, not just us, but the industry as a whole, has primarily been driven by expert opinion. So what do we want when we're out in the field, and how can we turn that into something that's useful for the public? This has produced, I think, some really good work, but the experts that have been producing these opinions have primarily been avalanche experts, and more we're dealing with communication problems. So as we look at, hopefully not the entire next 50 years, but the next few years, and we want to try to learn more about how we're communicating with the public and evolve that and refine it, we have reached out to some other groups in our collective industry, most notably Simon Fraser University in Vancouver, Canada, and also the National Center for Atmospheric Research in Boulder, Colorado. And together we formed a partnership where we hope to try to do some work to understand, improve, and evolve our public risk communication. One of the nice things about this partnership is that the group at Simon Fraser University is also doing similar work with groups around the world. They're working with Avalanche Canada and a couple of different avalanche warning services in Europe. And so by working with us in Colorado, we can try to understand Colorado a little bit better, but also leverage some of the work that's being done in these other regions and contribute to that work as well. So we're launching a project we're calling Snowpool. And the idea is that we're going to try to apply social science techniques to public avalanche communication and risk communication. We want to build a group of people that we can ask particular questions to and learn about how they're interacting with this information. Is it working for them? What are they getting out of it? Is it getting to them at the right place at the right time in a way that they can use it? So in order to do this, we need your help. I think everybody who came in today got a little card with Snow Pool and a QR code on it. You can follow that to learn more about the project, and if you'd like to, you can sign up to be part of this pool. The survey to sign up is it's more than just name and email. It's going to take you 15 plus minutes to fill it out, and it's going to ask you some questions about how you recreate in the backcountry, so that we can kind of sort people into different groups. We might ask some questions to the entire group and other questions to just individual sectors. Of course, it'd be great if everybody in this room signed up for this. We'd love to have you all involved. But we're all kind of part of the avalanche community, and we need to reach out a little beyond that as well. So what I would like from all of you, if you're willing, is to sign up, but then also recruit other people. Take these cards that we handed out to you today, or ones that are on the table by the friends table there at the entrance, and get other people to join up. We need people that have lots of avalanche experience, people with very little, people that live in Colorado, people that don't, people of all different recreational groups. The more people that we get into this, the better, and we're going to be continuing to recruit over a couple of years as we assume people will kind of drop off and come back to the project. What we'll be doing if you sign up, we'll contact you a few times a year with some online surveys, and we'll also contact you with some news and information about the projects, updates. The Friends are working with their outdoor retailer and corporate partners to try to provide some incentives, so we also may contact you with some of that information. So that is my call to action for all of you. I hope that you'll get involved and help us build this pool. I will answer a question or two if anybody has any. Otherwise, I will be kicking around the rest of the afternoon, and I'm happy to talk to you about it. Thank you. Oh, there's a question down here. The mic's coming from the left side.
Do you plan on doing any qualitative data collection as well as surveys, or is it mostly just surveys?
It's we have sponsored a PhD student at Simon Fraser University, and so she is designing a PhD level project that this is going to be the focus of. Most of the work that she's doing, I think, is going to rely around online surveys, but they're not your average survey. There's a fair amount of work that's going into building an experimental design. We also hope throughout the year to ask some kind of simpler and maybe more qualitative questions, mostly to help us and to try to keep people engaged, because we want to try to ask questions, like I've had up there kind of 4 to 6 times a year, and the graduate student we're working with probably isn't going to have that level of volume. So we're going to do a little bit of both. We're also happy to take your great ideas about what questions we should be asking people. Okay, thanks a lot. We'll move on to the next speaker. Our next speaker is a repeat offender, DaveRichards, and he's going to talk to us a little bit more about his day job as the snow safety director at Alta Ski Area and some of the work that they've been doing in their avalanche mitigation program. Please welcome Greene.
All right. So this is talk about racks, and this is a 30,000-foot view because there is so much that we've learned. And what I'm going to do is I'm hopefully going to keep this talk very, very short, and as a result, we can have a little robust conversation afterwards and now actually answer some questions. Hopefully this prompts a few questions. 9 years ago, I took over the avalanche program at Alta, Utah, and in my youthful exuberance, one of my goals was to investigate the feasibility of a remote avalanche control program in a major ski area setting. And many, many millions of dollars later, and a number of years later, it's come to fruition. And we've learned a lot along the way. So I'm going to kind of walk through how we got there, and maybe you guys can take away a few nuggets, because whether people like it or not, I'm afraid, well, I'm not afraid, I'm excited that this is the future of what we do in a lot of ways, particularly for large, high alpine terrain and highway corridors. So this is going to be a talk mostly from the point of view of Alta Ski Area. I will touch on our program at the UDOT as well. But Alta's got a long history of avalanche mitigation, and that includes 75 years of shooting military artillery. We were the first place to ever do it, and now I'm very, very proud to say that 75 years later, we're done with it. And that is because of this RACS program. In recent years, we were encouraged, meaning told by the US Army, that we were going to get rid of our artillery program. And that's how our RACS program was born. We now have a substantial RACS program at Alta and throughout all of Upper Little Cottonwood Canyon. Within the canyon, we have 72 total installations of RACS of all sorts of different types and sizes. But I'm going to focus on how this was developed at Alta Ski Area, where we have 19 installations consisting of 3 different models of RACS. So I'll be talking about what we've learned and sharing information that I think will be valuable to you guys. The first lesson we learned is planning. Know your terrain. When getting into the RACS program, I would encourage you to tiptoe, don't dive. Move slow, like everything else in avalanches. Go slow. There's an enormous amount of planning and testing that needs to go into your program. This talk should really be all about the planning, but I don't have an hour. So plan. Where are you going to put them? To A, trigger avalanches, and to B, not get completely smoked or to get buried, or every other aspect that comes along with it. How are you going to maintain them? And there's countless things that you need to consider. In the case of Alta, we set out with the goal of reducing projectile avalanche mitigation and fully eliminating artillery. So that was the goal. And this came along with the goal of increased levels of safety for our employees and guests, right? Initially, we started in our high alpine terrain, which was very difficult for patrollers to access on foot and safely perform avalanche mitigation. So it provided an increased level of safety for ski patrollers. This high terrain presents great challenges to us, not because we necessarily want to go ski it every single day, like Mount Baldy there on your right, which we do ski a lot, but because it runs down in an intermediate and beginner terrain below. So we have to mitigate it, and we have to mitigate it every single day. So how are we going to go about doing that? Working with your manufacturers and your consultants. I'm about to put myself out of a consulting job, okay? Although manufacturers will help you with this planning, I can't emphasize enough that you need to know your terrain and you know your snowpack better than anybody else. And you need to be an active participant in the installation of your racks. A fancy dinner in Europe bought for you by MND or Wiesen or whoever buys it does not constitute planning, okay? It constitutes drinking, which I think we all like doing too, but that's coming later. We've learned that you need to plan this program from the point of view of avalanche hunters, first and foremost. This rule is true for the consultants that you use as well. Their input is invaluable. However, remember that most of them have never actually used racks in your terrain, right? It's your knowledge that will count in the end when planning proper tools and the location of those tools. However, all that said, you need to do your homework. You really need to understand the systems, and you need to select the right tool for the job, and this is where the input of those manufacturers and those consultants comes in. As with many things in the avalanche world, there's the right tool for the right job in the right place at the right time. And it's part of your planning to decide which device you would like to use and for what purpose. They each have a different place. We found that O-bells, seen there, are on the bottom left, are really, really good for small, steep, confined start zones. Gaz-X is great in shallow snow and in wetter snowpacks, we've found. Wiesen towers deliver a really, really big bomb for really, really big terrain. Another consideration that you need to have is your reliance on aircraft. For helicopter-based racks such as the Obel and the Wiesen Tower, I would encourage you to heavily consider if you have aircraft literally at your beck and call. We have that in the Wasatch. I've got 5 Blackhawks to pick from, I've got 3 Hueys, I've got 15 A-Stars. So whatever I need to do, I can accomplish. If you don't have that luxury, helicopter-based racks may not be for you. If you don't have the helicopter, you're gonna find yourself in a tough spot when they break or it comes time to reload. And I promise they're gonna break. In the case of Alta, we got started by tiptoeing into the program by first installing a single Obel to replace a single avalancher target. And this gave us a feeling for how racks installations would work. This was followed by more Obels and eventually the elimination of that entire avalancher. And this method gave us confidence that racks programs would work for us. The Obel installation also met the goal of protecting a major cat road below, which gave us an increased level of confidence for the cat drivers at night as well as the public on the road during the day. We can now close, sweep, shoot, and reopen that road in about 10 minutes. Anybody that's skied Alta, this is the East Baldy Traverse. It's a major connection, and it used to be closed for days on end. We can keep up on it constantly now. The next step was to experiment with much larger terrain. With this in mind, we moved to a different device to address larger start zones with the Wiesen Tower. We installed 4 Wiesen towers in large, high alpine terrain, but we chose an area which was less critical to our operations and that we could continue to shoot with an avalancher to back it up if these devices didn't work out. I think that's really important. You need to have a backup plan. After proving these devices for a season, we felt that we were ready to step into even larger terrain and work to completely replace and eliminate the use of an artillery piece. So, over the last 2 summers, we've now installed 10 more Wiesen towers in high terrain and completely eliminated the use of the Mount Baldy gun. At this point, we consider ourselves fully in with the racks program. We have 19 total devices in the area that were previously shot with artillery and or avalanchers, and we have plans for another 10 devices within the area. Supplementary to this, we are working closely with the UDOT and Snowbird Ski Resorts, and as I said, between the 3 organizations, we're now up to over 72 racks in Upper Little Cottonwood Canyon with plans for 48 more. It's a huge program at this point. It's basically nonstop helicopter noise. So construction, you need to be involved in building these things. And yes, it means that I get to go for rides on outsides of helicopters and stuff, and it's a lot of fun. But it's also a lot of hard work. It's tough and it's really expensive. We have found an excellent installer who's incredibly capable, and we won't install racks without him. The installation is super helicopter dependent. It consists of site prep, followed by deep rock drilling, then the forming and pouring of concrete, and finally the setting of towers. It's very similar to chairlift construction, but in very difficult locations. And as much as it's hard work, it's also a lot of fun, right? But you need to be involved. There's a lot of manual labor, and if you step away, all of a sudden your tower is going to end up somewhere where you didn't want it, and it's going to get run over or buried. And yes, it's happened to Alta. Turned my back for a few minutes, and the tower ended up where I didn't want it. So you have to be involved. Finally, we, are hanging on the edge of cliffs, forming concrete and catching concrete buckets and actually setting towers. And in the end, you got some really fancy tools on your mountain. So what are the benefits of those tools? Well, racks generally work, and they work really, really well. The devices are avalanche hunters, and that's the business that we're in. These devices give us the immediate access to remote start zones at a time of our choosing, right? Use of the racks has many benefits. They cut down on needed time for mitigation. They eliminate projectile-based mitigation. They reduce the amount of handling of explosives, and they provide for the protection of life and property, all goals of the business that we're in. My personal favorite is an investment in worker safety. There are some photos of ski patrollers that have learned the hard way about stepping out into terrain where they may have been happier had we shot it first using a remote system. Alta will continue to invest heavily in racks as we move into the future. The planned future locations are based primarily on the desire to reduce avalanche hazard posed to patrollers running routes. right? These installations will provide continued and added margin and comfort, quite frankly, to a ski patroller, that some mitigation is to be done before they step out into really big terrain. I'll tell you what, before you step out into huge terrain above a massive cliff on Mount Baldy, you feel a lot better knowing that an 11-pounder has gone off in the air 5 minutes before you were there. It's a huge safety margin for us. But don't worry, you're always going to have a job. Okay, there will always be trail braking to do. I promise. There's no feasible way to effectively mitigate an entire ski area using racks. The patroller will always be needed to do the hard work of mitigating and forecasting avalanches. I often hear a concern, I heard it a lot at ISSW in Bend a couple weeks ago, that racks installations will kill ski patrolling. They're going to put us all out of a job and we won't get to go out and do the stuff we love, right? And I can assure you this is not true. It will not happen. And as a case in point, the Alta Ski Patrol has grown substantially since the advent of the racks program, not shrunk. There's the benefits. We also have some challenges with racks. And I don't have a lot of photos of broken racks because when these things break, you're tending to run around and try and fix them. So I'm going to throw up this slide, and we can hopefully have a discussion, like I said, about this. But there's some serious challenges. We've had racks malfunction in every way you can imagine. They leak. They fail to communicate. They fail to fire. They fall from underneath helicopters. Okay? It's true. It happens. We've had one of them blow itself clean up. Made an avalanche, but it blew itself up in the process. Okay? All of this, along with serious financial and infrastructure investments, can present large challenges to an operation. But regardless, I would tell you that the benefits outweigh the challenges, and I'm sure that there are many questions about this slide, and I look forward to answering them. There's also some exciting new stuff going on in the world of racks. This is a part of our industry that is changing and growing. This photo is of a new explosive. Looks a lot like just a regular 2-pounder, except that it's an 11-pound shot made to fit into the Wiesen cartridge container. We developed an 11-pound shot for Wiesen out of Comp B, which is a much more efficient deep slab hunter than the original emulsion Wiesen shot that they were designed to go with. This was designed in conjunction with Alta, Snowbird, UDOT, and the Colorado Department of Transportation. We all chipped in and built this bomb. Wiesen has responded by developing a new bomb, a 2-part ANFO shot that is actually very, very stable and doesn't mix until it drops from the tower, and as a result, gets rid of your table of distances problem so you can have a tower right next to a chairlift, which is kind of a cool thing. There's a lot going on in the development of the racks world. Other things that are going on, gas exploders continue to develop with the invention of the BW exploder seen there on the left. That's the first one in the world. That's at Alta. We test fired it just last week. It works. I'm sure we're going to break it. That's why we have it. Okay? We can break anything. We're not allowed to have nice things. But new gas exploders going in, which eliminate your need for helicopters. Different types of gas, which allow you to push gas uphill instead of having to have your tank farms for GasX on the mountain summit. And heavy gases like propane going downhill, we're using methane, which we can push up. So you can drive your truck or your snowcat straight to it and reload it right there on the road. So really exciting developments there. Also new is the extended chamber on the O-bell there seen on the right. That gives you twice the bang for your buck out of an O-bell by just giving you more space to fill with gas. So a lot of changes, a lot of things that we're learning, a lot of things that we're breaking, and I can't wait to tell you next year how this BW exploder works out. It stands for Boom Whoosh because we couldn't come up with a better name. So, yeah, we're excited to see how that one works out. So in summation, racks have enormous benefits to avalanche programs. They increase the safety of employees, there's no debate about that, and guests, and allow you to do so in a time-efficient manner as you see fit, which is really, really important to operations. They also come with many challenges, and you'll have to overcome those. In the end, however, I would tell you that moving into the world of remote avalanche control systems has been a game changer for Alta Ski Area. It's been a really good move for us. And we're happy with our RACS program, and it will continue to expand moving forward. And hopefully I kept that short enough that we can have an actual series of questions here. Hopefully I prompted some questions. So.
Thanks, Grom. That was great. Seeing the end of the artillery program at Alta, it really is the end of an era.
Yeah.
We do have time for questions. So in front here, Troy has a question. Oh. Bex is coming with the microphone.
Hey, Grom, I was curious what you saw with your Wiesen towers. You say you broke everything. What were your most common problems with the Wiesen towers?
The most common problem with the Wiesen tower is malfunction of the actual box. We have had one drop from underneath a helicopter because they are difficult to set onto the tower. You know, pilots get good at it, but we did pickle one day. But the most common problem is actually with the circuit boards inside, and they just failed to communicate. We did have one where the motor just died and it wouldn't drive the carousel around as well. But the beauty of that device is it's up there on the mountaintop. You just pick it up, you fly it down, you drop it in your parking lot, and their customer support is amazing, and we fix it. We also do keep a spare box now in Alta. So when one of those breaks, we pick up the old one, fly it down, set it down, throw the shots into the new box, and fly it right back up within about 15 minutes. So.
Great, thank you very much.
If we're just going to talk about problems with racks, it's going to be a long afternoon.
It's going to be a really long afternoon.
Hey, Dave, what's the Forest Service permitting process for that? Did you do an EA on the entire ski area to put them all in, or are you individually kind of going through that?
So many years ago, when we saw the future of the avalanche program involving racks, when we did our master development plan with the Forest Service, we went through and put X's on a map and studied all those areas and went through that process at the start of my career running the program. So now we can basically just move forward and plug them in. It's actually more difficult to put them on private land than it is public land, interestingly.
Is that something specific to Utah, or do you think that is something that's going to be the case in other states as well?
I think it depends on if you're in a undeveloped area of your county or within a town boundary. The Alta Ski Area actually all sits within the town of Alta, so I have to jump through a lot of really interesting hoops.
So local government issues.
Local government issues. A major government issue that we should comment on real quick since we're talking about the government is if you guys are interested in gas exploders, you will need to get a different explosives permit from the ATF. You'll have to get a Type 22 permit to be a manufacturer of explosives because they consider mixing gas to be manufacturing. So you'll have to jump through that hoop as well. So.
We have a question over here.
How do you square your work with the racks with UDOT doing all of, if you've got 70 or plus rack systems, how do you square with what you're doing with them controlling, the highway up to Alta and to Snowbird? With your use, are you doing yours separately, or you're, help communicating with UDOT on their work?
So as far as, I think what you're getting at is mostly the construction process and how we put these things together, not so much how we use them individually. How we use them individually. Yes. So, Alta and Snowbird are operating within their ski areas. UDOT is operating over the highway. It's all taking place at the same time in the morning. We are one really big dysfunctional family in Little Cottonwood Canyon, and a lot of radio chatter is how we square it, so to speak. If that goes back to the summer construction though too, all of the construction for Snowbird, Alta, and UDOT all takes place out of the Alta parking lot where we can all share helicopters and we can have a big yard, we can share concrete trucks, and we can all get it done together. Works out a lot better that way than us being off on our own program.
One of the things
Can you please repeat the question?
If UDOT closes the road while you're all doing the same thing.
If UDOT closes the road when we're all doing the same thing, the beauty of racks is we can continue to do our thing.
Okay.
Yeah, we can continue to push buttons or not fire as we see fit, depending on what's going on. So,
Any other questions out there? There's a lot of good discussion that can happen at the happy hour as well.
Yeah, well,
Is there a question in the back?
I'm here. I got yeah.
Thank you.
I'm fairly new to like understanding what all of this is. Is there somewhere that, like a website or something, or maybe you could dive into more specifically how these work and the process of actually shooting those things off?
that's a good conversation for you and I to have over a beer at 4 o'clock. Yes is the short answer, but I'm going to need to get my phone and show you where they all are. So, we got one more over there, and then I'll get off your stage.
Do you guys at Alta still have a significant number of routes patrollers are running with just hand charges? And if so, would you consider expanding racks to those paths as well?
23 routes run every single day, 2 patrollers to maybe 3 patrollers per route. So yes. And the second part of your question, yes, we are going to put, I showed that photo of a guy standing there with his airbag inflated. That's going to get a tower next summer. So,
I think we have one more question over here, Grom.
okay.
Hi, yeah, I was wondering, are you going to have a whole slew of new certifications, licensing, technicians, trainings? Are we going to have to do a whole bunch of extra things to be certified to use and service this stuff?
As far as explosives, no, because you're handling the same type of explosives that you're permitted to handle. As far as being a journeyman pipe fitter to fix broken gas lines underneath 20 feet of snow at 11,000 feet, that's a certification that's probably worth getting, honestly. So,
Great.
All right.
Thanks, Grom. Okay, we've reached the penultimate talk for the day. Next up is Doug McCabe. Doug is the director of the Ski Patrol and Snow Safety Director at the Yellowstone Club in Big Sky, Montana. He's been there for many, many years and also ski patrolled in New Zealand. He's worked with researchers at Montana State University, helped facilitating some of the work that the Yellowstone Club supports. And today he's here to talk to us about a large wet avalanche cycle that happened at the ski area a few years ago. So please welcome Doug.
Thank you, Ethan, for the introduction, and thank you for having me here today. I'm going to begin my talk with a statement I put out after this event happened. Let me get my first slide up here. And this will be the only thing I read off of during the talk, so bear with me here. On May 19th, a large wet slab avalanche occurred on the east-facing ridge of Pioneer Mountain at the Yellowstone Club. The avalanche was triggered by a natural cornice fall from the ridge above the avalanche terrain. Factors contributing to the avalanche included weather, snowpack, and terrain. Several days of warm temperatures without overnight freezing led to snowmelt that percolated through the snowpack. The part of Pioneer Mountain where the avalanche occurred is mapped avalanche terrain that is managed by the Yellowstone Club Ski Patrol during our operational ski season with closures and active avalanche mitigation efforts. At the time of the avalanche occurrence, where the area where the slide took place was closed and had been closed since the ski area shut down for the season on March 16th, 2020, roughly 8 weeks earlier due to COVID-19. Real quick, just want to give a shout out to the Yellowstone Club Ski Patrol. And I'm going to dive right into it. So May 19th, 2020, it's 4 o'clock. I'm just about to leave. I get a phone call, and there's been a report of an avalanche. And what am I thinking? That it's going to be something like this, an R1, D1, and why is that? In the off season, you know, we get a lot of reports of avalanches up on the ridge, and this is often what we see. So I get my AVI gear together. I grab AVI rescue gear. for the one other patroller that's on the mountain at the time, kind of on the back side of the mountain. We make a plan to meet up. I still don't know how big this is or what it looks like, so jump on my snowmobile, head on up, and the first place I get a view of it is actually where Nada had one of her wind research sites, and this is what I see. Yeah, and that was my reaction too, is like, oh my God. And so many things just rushing through my head all at once. It's like, oh, how did this happen? Like, holy shit, what did I miss? But then it's like, okay, wait a minute. No, the question I should be asking is anyone caught? Is anyone injured? Is anyone buried? Is anyone killed? And how are we going to figure this out? Because really, we're in an avalanche rescue triage sort of situation. Hardly anybody's up there. Remember, this is like at the very beginning of COVID when only a handful of employees were up there, which ultimately might have been a good thing. So in addition to forming a rescue plan with one other person for this small avalanche, I reach out to people that I can to figure out, are there employees that are missing or unaccounted for? And are there members that we know were skiing this closed terrain during the off season that are missing? So we start making those phone calls, start tracking everybody down. And you know, one thing again about being a private resort is we're able to do this. But yeah, super stressful. So I head up the mountain, and on my way up to meet my partner, to start a rescue and meet some of the other employees, my path is blocked because the snowmobile route, which you can see, let me use the laser, right here, this is, you know, during the season, this is a groomed run right here, and the avalanche debris has just come right over these tracks. And just so you know, one of those tracks was mine from a few hours earlier that day, and those are from the previous 2 days from mountain operation employees. And then just looking at this, you know, there's 1, 2, 3, 4 lift towers that I can see that have been hit with avalanche debris. This tower right here, you don't know it, but looking at this, I can tell immediately there's about 15 feet of debris up against that tower. And then almost everything in this frame, you know, maybe with the exception of what's over here, even when we have large dry slab avalanches, they don't make it into this frame. So this is just, it's shocking. And so anyways, I have to kind of like work my way around the debris to get up to the top of the chairlift here. And as I'm going up, I take some more pictures, even though it's like time is of the essence. It's just so amazing. I've got to take a couple photos. And one of them I take is, if you look closely, you can see a debris pile right here. You can see the chair behind it. You know, and just quickly, I'm like, this pile of debris has got to be 40 to 50 feet deep. It's just wild. And so I continue on up, and then I'm like, oh my goodness, the crown just keeps going. Like, I don't know if this ever ends. It maybe just goes forever. But also incredible is, you know, and you can't tell this from looking at the photo, over here, some of the avalanche terrain is like upper 30-degree slope, so prime avalanche terrain. But then over here by this other lift, our mountain lift, and that's less than 30-degree slope, so propagating into terrain that's clearly avalanche terrain, but stuff almost never see slide and hadn't seen slide up into this point, and just more debris, barely missing a couple buildings on the top of the lift terminal here. Okay, so we get to the top of the terminal, and at this point we get some good news because we find out that there's no employees that are missing. Everybody that was there that day is accounted for. So make a plan with my rescue partner up there. He's going to take the lower bit of the path. I'm going to take the upper bit. But this is just an enormous path. So we put our beacons to search and just put it in the holster and forget about it, and hopefully don't hear any beeps. And we're looking for clues and just checking it out more or less at this point. And then just seeing things that are strange, that, like, you know, I've been doing this a long time, and there's some things I just hadn't seen before, like, you know, like all these trees are snapped, and it's like, why did this one not? And there's like big trench here, and And then I'm like looking down the lift line, and it's kind of hard to see because it's all white, but it's just this, I don't know how to describe it, being so familiar with this terrain other than just like an ocean of avalanche debris. And then another angle looking down the path kind of at the start of like where the debris started to deposit, looking all the way down. Again, you know, if you're not familiar with this terrain, it'd be hard to tell, but there's like large swaths of trees that are either buried or have been taken out. They're just gone. And other really distinct terrain features that have just kind of blended all together. So the terrain, to me, the whole thing looks different. And you're like, oh man, this is nuts. And then I had somebody at ISSW ask me if I knew this was a wet slab avalanche, and I got really stumped by a pretty easy question. But you know, walking through the debris, it's like, how wet is the snow? Can you squeeze it? Can water come out of it? Well, there's just puddles. It's not wet snow. It's just water. I mean, this is nuts. This is like crazy. Anyway, so I'm still amazed by it now. Anyhow, about an hour and a half after we get the call, all employees have been accounted for. No members are reported missing. We didn't pick up any beacon signals, didn't find any clues. So I talked to management, and we make the decision to end the search at this point. And then also call our neighbors. So call Big Sky Ski Patrol, Snow Safety, let them know what happened. I called the Avalanche Center and gave them a very detailed report of what happened. I'll return to that, but no fault of theirs. Be careful what you say. It will come back almost instantaneously. And also ended up getting a phone call. This doesn't happen either, but if you find yourself in this sort of situation, you might get a call from your boss's boss and asking some pretty tough questions. So that was also quite stressful. Let's see, does clicker work? Okay, and I put this photo up here, again, just to show, you know, how close some of that debris came to lift maintenance building, top terminal of one of our main lifts. And then this was my rescue partner, who's now the assistant director at the YC Ski Patrol. I also like how he's wearing jeans to do the rescue, so you just got to run what you brung. Has this happened before? Yeah, it kind of did. It happened in 2013, also in May. We had a wet slab event on the same slope. At that time, it was the only event in our operating history that we'd seen anything like it. You know, it's also very large, but probably half the width and crown height was about half as much. And at the time this happened, it was like, whoa, this is as big as it can get. This is the big one. And so whatever you think the big one is, at least double it. Okay, so the following day, decided I was really eager to. I wanted to like run right up and check out the crown, and I was like, maybe we wait. You know, day's getting late, a lot of excitement, and a lot of hang fire there. But we did skin up with my rescue partner there the next day just to check out the crown and get some more information, because this is like pretty amazing. So there's the crown, and there's me, and just a hot tip for anyone, I was going to say patrollers, but anyone out there that's getting your picture up against a large crown, or if you're showing this to your team, the smaller the patroller, the bigger the crown. Yeah, it's at least 15-foot crown there. Now, I'm 5'3", so, you know, I don't know what that is, maybe like 7 or 8 feet. Okay, and then so we did a crown profile, and I'm not going to dive into this too much, but you know, 260 centimeters, and this is like our slab, homogeneous slab, weak layer, rounded depth hoar. you know, you're like, oh, rounded depth hoar, that's obviously not good. But on our journey along the entire avalanche crown, we really struggled to find what the weak layer is. And I don't know if that's because it just got obliterated or because it just wasn't as big of a factor, maybe. But where we dug here, we did find rounded depth hoar. And then this is our bed surface layer right here. So everything below the crown, obviously, right? This is the only thing that was left, kind of right here. Where am I going now? So this is, I'm just going to give a quick, like, sort of snowpack history for that season leading up to the event. Well, yeah, early season, I guess. But anyhow, in October, we got 28 inches of snow with 5 inches of SWE, so kind of heavier snow. And that's actually, and that's snow that didn't melt, so snow that fell and then stuck around. And that's quite a bit for us. That's unusual to get that much snow in October that doesn't at least partly melt and go away. And then that was followed by 2 months, November and December, that were both record low snowfall for us. 16 new inches of snow in November, 23 in December, right around 2 inches of SWE. So really low snow numbers there. So already it's like, well, maybe this is kind of in October, the foundation of our bed surface. And then January and February, and February is kind of more sort of the first half of February, but two record months for us as well. So probably like Colorado, not like Utah. Record for us is like 93 inches in a month, 79 inches in a month, but big snow months. So it's just like already it's like, oh, this is like kind of strange, like a lot of snow in October, not much in November, December, and then a really big January, February. I had to get another crown selfie in there. And then we measured the distance. Strava is like my social media of choice. So we put that on when we started and then measured the crown, and it came out at 1,800 feet long. Yeah. Ugh, yikes. And then I put this one in here. You can see, Neil's a little bit taller than me. His crown doesn't look as big. But I put this one up here, and it might be hard to see in the audience, but this is residue from control work. This is harder to see, but I just put that in there because, we still did a fair amount of explosives testing, explosives mitigation in this zone, and I'll go into that in a sec, but it really didn't tap into that weak layer, if there was a weak layer there, or disturb the bed surface enough. Okay, yeah. And, so we started looking at the crown like over here and then followed it all the way over to here. And it was when we got to this point, and actually, just backing up a step, part of the only bit of doubt I had at the end of or I guess the biggest part of doubt that I had the day before was what was the trigger? I didn't know. We didn't know. And when we're looking at the crown the next day, we're pretty sure the trigger was cornice fall that happened over here. We could see a big chunk of cornice broke off, about, small car size, and it crossed over the corner of the crown at one of its shallower spots, about 4 feet right there. Just some avalanche details. R5D4, and I was struggling with the D scale a little bit. I don't know why. In my ISSW paper, I called it a D3.5, and I had a few friends come up to me and go, "That's a 4." And I was like, "Well, I don't know." So I went back and, the way it is in swag, it's like, gives like the description of like what it can destroy, and then it's like how far did it run? And I'm like, well, this didn't run nearly that far. It only ran 1,000 feet. So this avalanche was double the width as it was its greatest length. So it's like, well, that doesn't, it barely qualifies for a 3 if you go by length. But then I actually you know, it took me like 3 years to do this, but I Googled like how much snow is this place and like tried to put some numbers into some formula. And at first I was getting really big numbers, like 200 to 300,000 tons. So I put in like really modest estimates, like half the crown height. It was like, well, it didn't run that far in other areas, and maybe it wasn't that wet, even though I know it was. And the smallest number I came up was with 50,000 tons of snow was moved. So pretty big for not a long slope. And then in our avalanche atlas, this is divided up into 6 different avalanche paths that usually run really separate and distinct. Obviously, in this event, it ran as just one big path. So remember that. You know, you can have in your mind all these separate paths that run separately all the time. And with these kind of outlier events, it can become one big path. Crown height was mostly, for the most part, like kind of 4 to 9 feet. Start zone angles were between 28 degrees and 40 degrees. Start zone elevation, just under 10,000 feet. Yeah, 1,000 was probably the max vertical run out. Okay, just a little like explosives testing, mitigation review here. We had eight days in that terrain with explosives mitigation. 56 2-pound cast boosters were put on that slope before we closed. And then days shoveling the cornice, it was over 20 days where we were bringing chunks of cornice down. This is a little unusual. So I'm like, what else was like weird about this season, aside from closing a month early in March and ending avalanche mitigation a month early anyways, is that even though we had a really big February, most of it kind of came in the first half of the month. And then after that, we were still getting snow, but it was kind of coming in like the 2 to 4 inch increments, like daily. So we ended up not doing any explosives control work after the 16th, you know, not knowing that we were going to close. And then when we did close on March 16th, we had quite a bit of snow after that. And then, yeah, and most of the avalanches that we were getting early season were R1D1s and like some R2D2s were like the bigger ones. But nothing, you know, usually early season in Montana, I imagine it's like Colorado here where it's like either you're bringing everything down to the ground because it's just junk down below, or, you know, at least parts of your path are running deeper. But that really wasn't the case. Oh, there's R2. Okay, so this brings me back to when I provided some information to the Avalanche Center. I think I was just like really excited, and I wanted to give them as much information as I could, and they do what they do, and they posted it, and there's like nothing wrong in there, but given the event, I still wanted to get that information to him, and this is all retrospect, but I might have been a little more careful. Kind of the statement I read you at the beginning, I kind of, after all this came out, I had to put out a statement that was a little more professional. But yeah, so anyhow, you know, we're all human here. So this pops up like the next day, probably as I'm like checking the crown out on SnowBrains. Gigantic wet slab avalanche releases at Montana Ski Area. Biggest slide I've seen. That's me. I said that, I guess. So, shoot. Oh, here's another one from Unofficial Networks. These photos are hard to believe. This slide was huge. And then down here, monster avalanche at Yellowstone Club. You know, not the thing I want to have out there if I want to keep my job. And then, yeah, I could keep going. I put one more in here, but there was like 20 of these, so I had to cut all the slides out to get this talk down in length. Be careful. Okay, transitioning to like graphs and charts. This isn't a scientific talk, by the way. You probably already figured that out. But anyhow, I had to put a couple in here. You know, I know science, even though I'm not teaching you any of it right now. This is a temperature profile. This is when the avalanche occurred. These spikes are like, each spike is like the high temperature for the day before. And just so, like, you know, the only thing really pay attention here is we had 2 nights without temperatures freezing overnight. And then, you know, even our daytime high temps really kind of ramped up leading up to the event. let's see, maybe try it over here. There we go. I'm going to skip, this is preset, but I'm just going to skip this one and boop-a-doop, go here. Oh, okay, cool. And so this is like a weather summary from our weather station. Don't pay attention to all the numbers. It's for the month of May. So on the bottom here is the day of the avalanche. So I've just highlighted a couple things. This first one is nighttime temperature, so 2 nights without overnight freezing. And here we just kind of like, it just have like a bump up in high daytime temperatures. And then if you go backwards before the event, 4 to 8 days before the event, there's 2 inches of SWE, which for us in Montana, probably like Colorado, was a lot. But it was like coming in, well, I guess, yeah, kind of big increments anyways, but not like all in one day, like you might get in a maritime snowpack, just kind of over the course of 4 days. And the snowpack increased during that time. And then during this warm-up, the snowpack shrunk right back down. So basically, I just wasn't paying attention enough to this, and it caught me by surprise. And I think, you know, had I been looking and we had 2 inches of rainfall in the snowpack, I'd be like, whoa, like shut everything down, nobody go up there. But because it fell in the form of snow 4 to 8 days earlier, and then kind of had this warm-up, I just felt like I wasn't as sharp as I could have been there. Okay, so this is just backing up to the crown profile, and I just want to focus in on the weak layer and bed surface and ask myself the question, did we see this in the snowpack in this same area earlier in the season? And I think the answer is yes. So here I'm going to move forward to another snow pit in December that was dug not right at the crown, but in the path that slid. And yeah, so we have a weak layer here. I'm pretty sure all this snow here was our bed surface snow that fell in October. But our weak layer, you know, was identified, and we actually did multiple pits in this area. I just chose one to put up here, but was kind of called it like mixed forms, you know, with like a subcategory of like 1 mil facets. So rather than like talking about all the tests and everything, I just figured I'd GROM score it and make it easier for everybody. And this scored a 7. And this is, remember, this is dry because this is in December. And a 7 for us in Montana in December is pretty good. Like, you know, it's the kind of snow pit I would look at, and, you know, I'm not thinking, oh, we don't need to do control work or mitigation. Of course, we're still going to do those things. But, you know, you're like, okay, this is good. We're going into good. It's not the kind of snow pit I look at and would have thought, oh, this is going to be a problem in 5 months. So just a heads up there, too. I don't know. It kind of caught me by surprise a little bit. And then looking ahead, this is 2 weeks after the event. Just, I don't know, another photo, but kind of cool. You can see just like where it's all melted out. And that's in August. So a few more months later, still a lot of avalanche debris, and then you can see a whole bunch of trees and like small forest taken out there. All right, and yeah, just some takeaway points here from the event. You know, I think it's important to remember, at least for me anyways, moving forward, that new snow and maybe more specifically the water, the SWE that's in the new snow. Remember, that's like free water that's available, particularly in the spring, to be released and flow through your snowpack. So something to pay attention to there. You know, kind of act, you know, to me it felt like a delayed onset rain event. It's important to have, obviously we all have avalanche rescue plans, but I think it's really important to just like, I don't know, have flexibility there, but also think of contingencies to that plan, just to be a little bit more ready. I did not say this, I've just echoing this from many avalanche professionals before me, but unusual, and this is kind of vague too, but I think it holds some truth. Unusual weather patterns, you know, when you see unusual patterns of weather, you know, maybe a little heads up, maybe you'll see some unusual avalanches as well. I put climate change up here. So I'm not suggesting, oh, I don't have any information if this is due to climate change. I don't know. But the reason I put climate change up here was not for this event, but it got me thinking, like, if things do start, if they are warming up, if they do start warming up, is this sort of event gonna, that's your off-season event? I had somebody actually earlier when I told them what talk I was doing, and that was in Colorado, they said, oh, we don't get really like wet slab avalanches in Colorado. Well, you might. You never know. But my concern would be like, do we start seeing more of these events pushing into the operational ski season, where before you're like, it happens after we close, after everything's shut down. Well, maybe it might start happening earlier. Something to pay attention to, consider. More explosives, bigger explosives, racks, always, whatever. Yeah, throw more at it. We could have done more there, and who knows if that make a difference, but if you have it at your disposal, why not use it? And the last point I have is sharing of historical knowledge. I understand this is like a pretty outlier event, and don't know when something like this is going to happen again. And I'm not solving anything here. I'm just sharing a story of a unique avalanche we had. But even with these outlier events, I think it's really important to share it with your community. And if you get the opportunity to share it with the larger avalanche community as well, so we can hear these stories and maybe learn something from it. So thank you for your time and for your attention, and it's a pleasure to be here.
Thanks, Doug. Thanks for sharing that story with us. That's great.
Thank you, Ethan.
We're a little pressed for time, but if there's a question out there, I want to make sure you get an opportunity to ask it. Okay, just go ahead because I can't see you.
Just wondering, what were the questions your boss's boss's boss asked you?
Yeah, that's a good question. Well, there was a few in there, but the one I remember was, are you 100% certain that no one is in the debris? And that's pretty hard, it's like, I kind of did the I'm 99.9% certain. He didn't like that answer, so he had to get me to 100, but that was a tough one, trying to describe why I felt really confident enough to end the search, but he wanted to know with absolute certainty that nobody was in that avalanche.
That's a tough one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you. If anyone has any questions, come find me afterwards. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, well, for our last presentation, this is going to be a little bit of a group effort. For those of us that have a little gray hair and have been in the avalanche industry for a bit, this next experience was a very common one for us, but it's been a long time since we've had the honor of listening to Knox Williams address us about avalanches and his experiences in Colorado. But to talk a little bit about this anniversary that we're having of the 50th year of an avalanche safety program in Colorado, I'd like to welcome up Knox Williams, who has been present for all of it. Can we turn the lapel on? Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you. It's a pleasure and an honor for me to be invited to this event right now. My experience began in 1970. I retired in 2005. I got too old for the job. And so I want to talk about how all of this began. And so the origin of the center goes back to, let me get my paper right, I have notes here. So this year will be the 50th anniversary of avalanche forecasting. And I was invited to give a talk on how it all began. I quickly discovered how bad my memory was, but anyway, I got enough to put together an interesting story and history of what happened since that time back in 70. In the 1960s and 70s, winter sports were growing in Colorado, and that meant an increased number of people were being exposed to the threat of avalanches, whether on foot, on skis, snowmobiles, snowboarders, in vehicles on highways, or in homes that were built in the wrong spot. It was in the 60s, the Forest Service had begun a brand new snow and avalanche research project in Fort Collins. Pete Martinelli was the director. Also at that center was a man named Art Judson. Art Judson spent some time at the Swiss Avalanche Institute in Davos and came back with the idea that an avalanche forecast program could be done for Colorado. So he put things in motion. In 1970, Judson was looking to hire somebody to come on to that program. And by golly, I had just graduated from CSU Atmospheric Science, had a Texas accent, sort of things that I didn't think would get me in the snow business. But I applied for this job, and I got it for reasons that I still to this day do not understand. They actually wanted somebody to come in with no preconceived notions on what avalanches were like, what caused them, and what could we study to learn more about them. So the fact that I didn't know an avalanche from a snowball, or that I skied like a clown, or that, I had no experience, I got the job. Well, lucky me. All right. I got my papers mixed up, and I cannot do this without my papers. All right. So, 1973, 50 years ago, the Colorado Avalanche Warning Program was formally created at the Forest Service office in Fort Collins. Art Judson was the Lone Ranger. I was Tonto. Betsy Armstrong, who you'll see in a short time, and her husband, Richard, also worked at that center in the early years. But 1983, disaster struck. It was the Ronald Reagan years as president, and downsizing government was a priority. In Colorado, the Avalanche Research Project and the Colorado Avalanche Warning Program were abolished. We all lost our jobs. But then the damnedest things started to happen. In Colorado, there was a cloud seeding project that had begun in the 70s, and that was done to augment mountain snowfall. The program is being managed by the Colorado Department of Natural Resources. I'm going to make a little side story here. I'm going to get back to this history in a moment. But the cloud seeders had contracts with the state of Colorado. And there was a clause in that contract that prohibited seeding if the avalanche danger was rated high or extreme. One of these cloud seeders operated out of Durango. He would frequently call the Avalanche Center on days when we had posted a high avalanche danger and would argue with us to get the danger rated lower at moderate. The reason was so he could seed and get paid. He always lost that argument. We had it up on him, and that was just an interesting thing that we had to deal with. Okay, let's get back on track. Now it's May of 1983. The Avalanche Center has gone away. That created a problem for the Colorado Department of Natural Resources. Natural Resources was managing the cloud seeding project that was going on. because avalanche danger rating, when the avalanche center went away, there was no way for the cloud seeders to know what the avalanche danger was out there, and therefore whether cloud seeding should be allowed or not. That was a real problem. The Department of Natural Resources came to me, I was unemployed, and said, we will rehire you, and you can find some other forecasters, and we will restart the avalanche warning program. But there's one hitch. You have to raise 100% of the money to make this happen. Well, not exactly why I got in the snow business, but here I am, and I thought, let's give it a go. It was kind of like winning a new car, but no money to buy gas. So a few other things began to fall in place. We got our hands on some Forest Service money, came from a different part of the Forest Service that had just closed. And they saw a need for avalanche forecasting, even though if the main center had disappeared. We also got grants from CDOT. They needed to know what was coming in the way of storms and so on to maintain safety on highways. Colorado Ski Country USA was interested because avalanche dangers affect the ski areas that they monitor. Next, we're starting this, but we decided we need to create a Friends of the CAIC. That could be another source of funding for us if the Friends paid a little bit every year, and we provided them with the best avalanche forecasting that they could get in the state. Lastly, the National Weather Service ended up providing office space because they needed info to determine their avalanche models and what it might cause and what people ought to know with the changing weather, and avalanches were part of that. So now the National Weather Service had access, they had access to weather data coming in from this network of sites that we reestablished throughout the mountains to provide weather and avalanche data in all the mountain ranges. It ended up being a win-win for everyone. So here we are, the winter of 83, 84. We are starting a new program. We renamed the program the Colorado Avalanche Information Center. Its mission was to improve avalanche safety and a program of forecasting and education. The Colorado Geological Survey became the parent agency for the reborn CAIC. And this was logical. It was a welcome move for the CAIC because avalanches were defined in Colorado statutes as a geologic hazard. So we moved into the Colorado Geological Survey as a agency that hired us, and we have some people here this afternoon. Vicki Cowart was the state geologist for a number of years, and you'll have a chance to meet with her today. Okay, the CAIC was now a state agency, no longer Forest Service. Its home office was with the National Weather Service in Boulder, initially in Denver, but in Boulder. Weather Service loved having us there because we provided a whole new network of sites that we could give them on what was going on for mountain storms. And so it was a win-win situation for both. We also then realized we can't run this out of one site in Boulder, so we opened a number of field sites around, and these were one at the Eisenhower Tunnel, Summit County, Silverton, Wolf Creek Pass, and on the western slope. And so now we had multiple offices out there so that the forecasters who worked out of those offices knew their terrain and knew the avalanche danger well there. And we had most of the mountains of Colorado where avalanches were a problem covered by an observer who is there. So we had eventually, hard work, achieved our goal, and the Avalanche Center was healthy again. We were able to then run a program that benefited, we think, everyone, the citizens of Colorado, those who drove the mountain passes, those who were into backcountry skiing, ski area skiing, snowmobiling, which was a very quickly growing industry, and certainly information for visitors coming into our state to know if they were on skis, snowmobiling, or whatever, they could have an idea of whether they were going into a dangerous situation. So in a few short minutes, that's how we started in 1970. And this being the, starting in 53 actually, and this being the 50th anniversary of a lot of hard work, but very rewarding. Thank you.
Thanks, Knox. It was great to hear that history in first person. I'd like to now welcome to the stage another founding and pivotal member of the early part of the avalanche program in Colorado, Betsy Armstrong.
There are a lot of people here. I'm so impressed by how many people are at this meeting. It's terrific. But I'm not impressed by how many women there are. There needs to be more women. When I first started in this avalanche business, I was in Silverton with the San Juan Avalanche Project in the early 1970s. And then I was about the only woman that I ever saw at any of these meetings. There were no lines in the women's bathroom. But now I'm seeing more and more women involved. When I joined Knox with my husband, Richard Armstrong, at the Fort Collins Avalanche Center, there were 3 other women in forecast offices in Washington State, in Utah, and in Alaska. But I don't think there are any women in forecast centers now, are there? Oh, good, okay. So all I can say is more women instructors, educators, and forecasters. And I just have one story to tell because Knox did such a comprehensive history of the Avalanche Center. When you were watching all those historic photos, there was an early photo of Knox sitting at a desk. His hair was very black then, and, but there was a teletype machine there. So when we first got to Fort Collins, that's how we sent out the avalanche warnings. We would write out the warnings, and then we would type it into the teletype machine, and then that would print a strip of paper that we had to run through the machine. And if you made a mistake when you were typing it, you had to start all over again. And if the teletype machine would eat your paper, you had to start all over again. And so, hooray for all these great advances. When we moved to the National Weather Service in '83, it was like we had gone into the next universe. It was wonderful. So thank you all for inviting me to be here, and go.
Thanks, Betsy. truly inspiring, these two, and so many others. And at this point, I'd like to invite the current and former staff from the CAIC and any other aspect of the public avalanche safety program to come up and join me on stage. I do want to complete a little bit of the history that Knox sort of left off with the Avalanche Center joining the Geologic Survey, which was a really important aspect. Another piece that happened a little earlier was our partnership with the Department of Transportation, which became formal in the early 90s. You can all come out into the spotlight here, no reason to. And that partnership has only grown closer and continues to this day. A lot of the partnerships that Knox talked about with of the National Weather Service and the Snowmobile Association and other aspects of DNR are also extremely important parts of the program that we have today. We did move out of the Geologic Survey and back into the Executive Director's Office of the Department of Natural Resources in 2013. You guys are doing great. Maybe form 2 rows. Yep, keep on coming out. Short people in front. Bex, that's you. And when I joined the Avalanche Center in 2005, I think we had a staff of 12. Nick, you can come on, join everybody. No reason. There's plenty of room. And now this year we're up to a staff of 31. So it's really been amazing to see this program grow from Knox and Judd in 1973 when the first forecast was put out in November to Betsy and Richard and other folks joining them, eventually Dale and Nick and Scott and all the people that you've been seeing up on the screen earlier today. Now we have this amazing group of people that are working tirelessly to hopefully support all of you in your avalanche safety needs throughout the state. A couple of other things that I think are really important to note about this group of people, starting very early in the program, but continuing to this day, is the amount of research and support for research that this group has done. Keeping track of the accident database and publishing snowy torrents, contributing to ISSWs and other conferences. At the last ISSW just 2 weeks ago, our group contributed to 15 different research papers, which for an operational group, mostly with a few advanced degrees, but a pretty good mix of people is pretty impressive. So I'm really proud of the work that's been done at the center while I've been here, but it's really included so many more people, and so I'm just really happy to honor the folks that are here today. I hope that you get a chance to talk to them at our social hour after this, and we're going to continue to try to commemorate this anniversary at several different events, the Benefit Bash, throughout the year. So hopefully we'll be able to dredge up some other good stories from Knox and alums and put those out for the rest of the winter. So with that, thank you to all of you for all the work that you've done over the years. So that brings to a close the 22nd annual CSAW. Again, something that Knox Williams spearheaded many years ago. We do have a happy hour for you out on the lawn. This is sponsored by the American Avalanche Association, Mammut, and Fat Tire. Mammut also has some discount codes for people that are attending today, so please stop by their table. Thanks again to the Friends of the CAIC for all the work that they've put into this event and all of the volunteers who helped as well. Thanks for coming. We'll see you again next year.